Chapter 6:11. At night, Mariewa was not as peaceful as it used to be. Many ports did not stop opening. Suddenly, many kings from all over the world came to visit Mariewa. Every 5 years, the world government will hold a meeting with members of the joining countries. The content of the discussion is naturally meaningless topics such as world peace and the Revolutionary Army. The quiet Mariewa was also lively at this time, and the celestial dragons were also strangely quiet, no longer torturing slaves, and the depressing screams no longer came out. Dustless had to sigh. When did the arrogant celestial dragons pay so much attention to their image and influence? Get out of the way, don't follow. Seeing Dustless coming, the faces of the kings on the roadside changed greatly and they took the initiative to give way. Although they didn't know what Dustless's surname was, they knew the uniform that the celestial dragons dared to wear. Some of the people who came with their families grabbed the soil and the flowers and smeared it on the faces of the women. Sometimes, being born beautiful was also a sin. Looking at this scene, Wu Chen's expression was normal. He was like a sculpture without any emotion. His face was cold and detached from the world. He walked through the crowd magnanimously. La la la, the cheerful voice of a child was filled with innocence, like the laughter of a butterfly strolling among the flowers. His watery eyes shone like pearls, and his wave-like blue hair gave people a refreshing feeling. Behind him, there was a slightly impatient voice with a hint of helplessness. Don't wander around, this is not Alabaston, Vivi. The young girl turned her head and made a face, and then continued to run forward. Perhaps because she was too excited to play, she didn't realize that there was a celestial dragon coming toward her. Bang! Ouch! It hurts. Vivi covered her head, and there were some tears deep in the corners of her eyes. Looking up, she saw the ugly celestial dragons with bubbles. The tears in the corners of her eyes immediately came back, and her little face was as pale as paper. Sorry, she is still young, she didn't mean it. Ko Beulah, who was Vivian's father, hurriedly came over and took him into his arms. His eyes were full of despair, and he looked at the disgusting celestial dragon in front of him with a nervous breakdown. He resisted the fear in his heart and looked at him. How dare you bump into me? You're courting death. The ugly Tenryubito glared at the father and daughter and pointed the delicate pistol in his hand at Ko Beulah. This sudden turn of events attracted everyone's attention. No one extended a helping hand to Ko Beulah and his daughter. There were even some who acted as if this had nothing to do with them, with a mocking expression on their faces. Ko Beulah's heart and soul were torn apart. Unknowingly, he was already kneeling on the ground. Just as he was about to open his mouth to beg for mercy again, a light shout stopped Ko Beulah. You are the king of Alabasta. It doesn't matter if you kneel, but your people won't trust you anymore. Looking in the direction of the voice, he saw Dustless and Hancock walking leisurely. So it's you, you clown. Staring at the ugly Tenryubito, Dustless suddenly found that he had an impression of it. It was the Tenryubito who was tortured by Luffy in the Sabaody archipelago. His name was Charles Ross, and he had a sister named Shalolia. You freak, you want to intervene when I'm dealing with a lowly person. Where is your dignity as a Tenryubito, Royce South? Seeing Dustless coming, Charles Ross roared. The gun in his hand was put down. He knew what would happen if he offended Dustless, because he was thrown into the garbage dump by Dustless's men like many Tenryubito a while ago. You can shoot and kill them. Glancing at Charles Ross, Dustless's mouth then curled into a playful smile, touched his chin, and made a thoughtful and incomprehensible expression. However, I really want to know what kind of unprecedented scene it is for a Tenryubito to be chased by a shark in the sea. Maybe you will be famous for this. Why don't you let us try, Charles Ross? The ugly Tenryubito was disgusted and looked at Dustless as if he was looking at a devil. Immediately, he slipped away without hesitation. His crooked steps were like a roly-poly, extremely funny, and he fled in a hurry. He, who had been beaten by Dustless, knew that this was not a joke. Do you regret it now? Staring at the disappearing back of Charles Ross, Dustless turned his head and asked. His eyes fell on Corbula's frightened face, and he sighed. About 800 years ago, 20 kings established the world government. The royal family of Alabaston, which is today's Corbula, and his daughter Weiwei, were actually Tenryubito like Dustless and Doflamingo. But the Nefertari family refused to move into the Holy Land of Mariewa, and they lost their identity as Tenryubito. The ancestors made the decision, but the younger generation can't make the judgment. Corbula, who was still in shock, trembled and was full of fear. When Dustless heard it, he could hear the regret. If he and his daughter Weiwei were Tenryubito, there would not be such a frightening scene today. Tenryubito can look down on anyone as if they were insects. Even their so-called powerful kings are just the lowest existence in front of Tenryubito. To put it bluntly, they are pariahs. The Tenryubito society belongs to the old slave social system. They have a strong concept of bloodline, a strong sense of racial superiority, and a serious attitude of discrimination against anyone except Tenryubito. In short, they don't treat anyone as a human being. Well, Dustless, who was about to speak, suddenly noticed a pair of cold eyes, secretly peeping at him. He did not dare to approach deliberately, but looked at him obscurely. This is interesting. His sight suddenly became as sharp as a knife, sweeping through the sea of people, and a figure suddenly came into view. It seemed that he was aware of Dustless's gaze, and the spying figure quickly flashed away and went into the vast sea of people, and the breath disappeared as if it had never appeared. I forgot about this guy. But your courage has not shrunk, as always, you are bold and reckless. You actually think that's it, stupid. Chapter 6:12. A burly body suddenly came into Dustless's pupils, wearing a heavy black coat, with a golden hook in his left hand, a tall figure of nearly 2 meters, and a horizontal scar on his face. It is Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, today. This old boy's strength is improving rapidly. The dark pupils turned around Crocodile, and the heart of the ancient well rippled. Although Dustless was a little surprised, he nodded silently. The humiliation given to Crocodile last time has taken root and sprouted in his heart, planting the seeds of hatred, so he can do his best to become stronger. Only in this way can the distance between each other be narrowed, and the figure of Dustless of the other side will be getting closer and closer. In fact, Shichibukai often participate in this kind of meeting. As one of the 3 major forces of the Grand Line, Shichibukai, which country is too unbalanced and needs their approval? It sounds powerful, but in fact, only small people like Crocodile are tempted. It's like Hawkeye doesn't care about this kind of meeting at all. But you dare to take the initiative to test me. As the saying goes, courtesy demands reciprocity. As the master of Mariewa, I will also give you some gifts. The indifferent expression was replaced by a smirk without a trace, and his eyes were slightly scattered. After seeing that no one was around, Dustless's gaze was as sharp as a knife, and the direction locked was Crocodile's body. In the dark, Crocodile, with a cigar in his mouth, seemed to sense the existence of Dustless, and his footsteps suddenly stopped, and he turned around suspiciously. The first thing that came into his eyes was Dustless. This guy, he did it on purpose, deliberately letting me find him. Crocodile, who was aware of the existence of Dustless, was frozen, and he couldn't help but think of the scene when he came to Mariewa for the first time as Shichibukai. The scene of being crushed by Dustless was vivid in his mind. Almost instinctively, he felt something was wrong, and a calm heart became irritable, but he couldn't tell the specifics, so he could only secretly put up 120% of his heart on guard. This is Mariewa and the tiger's den and wolf's den. It is not a kind place. Even if he is killed, there will be no one to bury him. You be ****. You peeked at my wife bathing and stole her underwear. At this moment, a red-faced and stout king ran over angrily. He pointed at Crocodile's nose and scolded him. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked so angry that he wanted to tear Crocodile into pieces. "What nonsense are you talking about? If you don't want to die, then get out of my way." The unexpected change stunned Crocodile, and he immediately scolded with a murderous aura. He didn't put the king in his eyes at all and was full of contempt. It was not because this was Meriewa. He could deal with the minions in front of him with a hook. This was the territory of the world government, so he had to give some face. In a world where the strong were respected, the one with the biggest fist had the final say. "You peeked at my wife bathing and stole her underwear. How dare you talk to me like this?" The king's eyes widened and he couldn't believe it. He didn't expect there to be such a rampant flower thief in the world. Crocodile's face became more and more gloomy when he heard this, and the hook in his left hand was raised. When he was about to end the king's life, another change occurred. The surrounding void was slightly distorted, although the amplitude was not large, it could be seen with the naked eye. In particular, the space around Crocodile was the most serious. It was filled with some kind of mysterious force, like a whirlpool in the deep sea, and something seemed to break out of its shell. "This is fire." Seeing such a strange scene, Crocodile was stunned, and he immediately tensed his spirit and became alert. He noticed a throbbing flame from this unsightly whirlpool. It was not very lethal, but it had a different kind of strangeness. For a while, even the king who provoked him looked away. "That's not right, this is," looking closely, Crocodile, who suddenly realized that something was wrong, twitched his old face and had already guessed what kind of powerful thing it was. Caw caw caw, the distorted void suddenly expanded and burst open like a mirror. Countless women's underwear fell out of it and fell in front of Crocodile like fine snow. This sudden scene made everyone stunned, and they stared blankly at the women's underwear all over the ground. "You shameless bastard. You look like a fiend. That black one is my wife's," the previous king said bitterly with tears streaming down his face. "Old man, are you AF** king idiot? This is obviously a frame-up. How did you become a king when you look like a stupid pig?" Crocodile, who was angry out of humiliation, grabbed his neck and roared furiously. With scarlet fire in his eyes, Crocodile vomited blood in his heart. This unexpected disaster really came at the wrong time. He was beaten up when he just came to Meriewa. It was extremely unlucky. "Let go of me, don't forget where you are." The powerful low voice sounded through his ears, and Crocodile's expression was stiff. Although he was unwilling, he still let go of his hand and threw the king in front of him out like garbage. The person who spoke was the former Marine Fleet Admiral, and now the Commander-in-Chief of the entire army, Sky. "This is a blatant conspiracy. What is your government doing?" With his mouth twitching, Crocodile roared to defend himself, and his face was extremely gloomy. Fleet Admiral Kong's old eyes looked at the women's underwear all over the ground. Of course, he knew that this was a conspiracy, but it had been confirmed, and there were even witnesses. Crocodile jumped into the sea and couldn't wash it away. In the future, he would have a funny name, Underwear Thief. Staring at Crocodile's old face, Fleet Admiral Kong was happy. He used to be a marine and hated the deformed organization, Seven Warlords of the Sea, very much. What's more, this is Meriewa, how can he tolerate Crocodile's trouble? Chapter 613. Crocodile's old face dripped blood and turned into a strange purple color. An unprecedented grievance spread from the bottom of his heart. He was 100% sure that the person behind the scenes was Dustless, who was smiling at him. Crocodile couldn't fight back. He was teased like a clown without any dignity. He had no evidence. As the saying goes, catch a thief with the stolen goods. This is the truth that has not changed since ancient times. Framing a celestial dragon, this unique big hat will be buckled on his head. Every dog has its day, let's wait and see. Under the strange gazes of the crowd, Crocodile walked away with a black face. Before leaving, he did not forget to glare fiercely at the complacent Dustless. Then, he turned around and left indignantly. He could only suffer in silence. If he stayed here, he would only be humiliating himself. Their obscure eyes locked onto Cobra at the same time, glancing at him faintly before fleeing in a panic like a mouse. Being stared at by a group of ants and yet unable to do anything, Crocodile felt his stomach ache just thinking about it. His hatred for Dustless reached an all-time high. Looking at Crocodile's disappearing back, Commander Kong shook his head incomprehensibly. He also knew that Crocodile's black hand was Dustless. You don't see the big picture. Going against the current will only bring about your own destruction. That laughable fantasy in your heart is just a lie to yourself and others. With an imposing wave of his hand, Chief Kong and the group of guards left one after another. Only then did this farce come to an end. In the eyes of Commander Kong, Crocodile was just an idiot filled with hatred. That's all. This kind of person can be 7 warlords of the sea. He couldn't agree. No matter how hard Crocodile tried to change fate in the end, the result was in vain. Some people are not qualified to choose to dominate fate at all. Like Crocodile, who doesn't know life and death and tries to challenge the wheel of fate, there is only one end. He will be ruthlessly crushed and turned into a pile of flesh and blood. That kid seems to be planning to do it. Frowning slightly, Dustless naturally saw Crocodile's malicious eyes. At the same time, he couldn't help but admire Crocodile's methods. If he didn't know the development of this world in advance and had the ability to predict the future, he might not have known about the existence of a sophisticated weapon like Pluto. Thank you for saving me, Ko-Bula thanked him gratefully and sincerely. If Dustless hadn't helped them out in time, they might have been shot to death by the celestial dragon named Chalos. Judging from the violent and bloodthirsty mood of the celestial dragon, they might have been brutally dismembered after death. This kind of appalling thing, the celestial dragons here are rare and common, and everywhere. May I ask my benefactor? The corner of Ko-Bula's mouth stopped moving. Realizing the difference between their identities, Ko-Bula swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. There was a world of difference between the identity of a king and a celestial dragon. Rashly asking for the other party's name was also a kind of silent blasphemy. Big brother, what's your name? Seemingly seeing her father's confusion, Vivian took a step forward and blinked innocently. Looking at the young and innocent girl with cold eyes, the indifference in Dustless's eyes slowly converged, and a rare gentleness swept across. His indifferent voice was also magnetic. Thinking of his complicated life experience, he frowned and said, "Now my name is Lois South." Now? Do you still have your previous name? Vivian blinked innocently as she asked. Dustless was obviously not interested in the child's question. Like a ghost, he disappeared into the void and answered her question on a whim, leaving only a faint voice that lingered in the void. Maybe, but who knows? The moonlight was like a plate, and the night sky was as quiet as stagnant water. Late at night, the lively Mariewa also quieted down. Under the hazy moonlight, a black shadow could be vaguely seen sneaking in the dark. Its steps were light, like a dragonfly skimming the water. Its movements and jumps were natural, elegant and vigorous. From this exquisite skill, it can be seen that it has reached the realm of perfection at first glance. Under the faint moonlight, one could vaguely see the silhouette of a person. She was tall and had long black hair that cascaded down like a waterfall. Her facial features were regular and beautiful. Her sparkling eyes were unusually calm and filled with wisdom. The direction of the girl is heading is Dustless's villa. Is she here? Hancock, who had been waiting for a long time, suddenly opened her eyes and saw the figure rushing towards her, showing a soft smile, like an old friend meeting, with a little excitement. "Long time no see, Robin," Hancock said gently with a smile. Apparently she was very familiar with the figure in front of her. Looking at Hancock's figure, you will be surprised to find that this person is the wanted criminal with the name Devil Child, Nico Robin. A few years ago, the Marines that surrounded Nico Robin were destroyed by Dustless. She was rescued by Dustless. By chance, she also became Dustless's subordinate. She was sneaking outside like a hidden chess piece. Now she is secretly a subordinate of Crocodile. This time she came to Mariewa with Crocodile. She was able to sneak into Mariewa safely. Naturally, she made a simple disguise to not be recognized. "Long time no see, Hancock." Nicole Robin also greeted him warmly. Obviously, the relationship between the two of them was unexpectedly close. She asked, "Master, why did you suddenly call me over?" Crocodile is suspicious by nature. He has already executed many of his subordinates who were suspicious. Crocodile is cunning, despicable, and shameless, but it is undeniable that he does have some cleverness. Every time he can lead the situation to his own side, he can be regarded as a hero of a generation. Hancock shook her head when she heard this, indicating that she didn't understand. Dustless's thoughts of preparing for a rainy day could not be seen through, let alone understood. Chapter 6:14. As for why Nicole Robin agreed to be Dustless's subordinate, the reason was very simple. First, she was desperate, and she had to find a spacious and safe shoulder to lean on. Second, Dustless promised that after her mission was completed in the future, he would use Rinnegan's power to resurrect her mother with the technique of Rinnegan. Although there was suspicion of taking advantage of people, Dustless never valued the process. No matter how perfect the plan is, there will be countless loopholes. In contrast, he pays more attention to the final result. Hancock and Robin walked together, laughing and chatting happily towards Wu Chen's bedroom. From time to time, there was a crisp and pleasant laughter, showing their harmonious relationship. These two little girls, forget it, it's not bad. Dustless looked down at the figures walking side by side, standing with his hands behind his back, nodded and chuckled, then shook his head and couldn't help but sigh. Dustless still clearly remembered that because of a certain protagonist, the relationship between Robin and Hancock was not harmonious, and even a little bit hostile. It was completely new to him. When dealing with the enemy, the muzzle was united, and the internal relationship was harmonious. This was the situation Dustless wanted to see. Although he scoffed at the so-called fetters, he still hoped that they could be restrained by each other's sincerity. As for an anomaly like Doflamingo, Dustless didn't hold any hope. Sitting on the sofa in silence, Wu Chen tasted the steaming tea carefully. Sometimes, he would pick up one or two pieces of carefully made pastries and put them into his mouth. In this world, he had developed the habit of eating snacks unconsciously, which could be regarded as killing the boring leisure time. About a few minutes later, Robin and Hancock came to Dustless's bedroom. "Master." The smile on their faces disappeared, and the two respectfully said. Dustless nodded, "You don't need to be so serious, sit down." Robin and Hancock looked at each other and sat down quietly. Compared with the slightly cautious Robin, Hancock, who usually gets along with Dustless every day, was more relaxed and natural. "Is Crocodile going to attack Alabaston?" As soon as Robin sat down, Dustless asked. "I don't know the specific situation, but it's true that he often pays attention to the situation of Alabaston, especially the royal family of Alabaston." Dustless frowned, and his face was full of doubts. It stands to reason that a small character like Crocodile knows the information of Pluton. After thinking about it, Dustless filtered the people he contacted in the past few months. He only thought of one person who may know the source of information of Pluton. Ambrio Ivankov, a senior cadre of the Revolutionary Army and a paramecia hormone fruit user. Although the times are few, Dustless learned from White Zetsu that the two had contacted each other. As for the content of the conversation, only God knows. Maybe Crocodile got the information of Pluton from him, so he recruited Nico Robin, the devil child, opened an umbrella for her as a shichibukai, and took the opportunity to sneak into Mariewa. Master, why do you want to interpret the poneglyphs? These unmentionable pasts should be the pasts that the world government has always wanted to erase. Exposing them will do you no good as a celestial dragon. Staring at Dustless's face, Robin asked doubtfully. The general content of the so-called poneglyphs, according to her guess, is to record how the 20 kings destroyed an ancient kingdom 800 years ago. Of course, there are also records of the whereabouts of ancient weapons. If you have to find a reason, looking at Robin's eyes and sorting out his thoughts, Dustless said, I'm not interested in who is right or wrong in history, and ancient weapons are actually dispensable to me. Dustless said frankly and seriously, showing sincere feelings in his words. Even though his expression was still frozen and cold, it was a lot gentler, and the cold villa gradually warmed up. To put it simply, I'm just curious. Curious. Hearing this, Robin couldn't help but be startled, and the corners of her mouth twitched slightly. The answer she had been looking forward to for a long time should be refreshing, not so simple and casual. Looking at Dustless's eyes, Robin's sight no longer changed. People say that the eyes are the windows of the soul. As long as there is any lie, the eyes will dodge and shrink, and even blink unnaturally. Could it be true? After a while, Robin said in astonishment. Her black eyes were as calm as autumn water, but her own eyes were constantly changing and jumping irregularly. She had never thought that Dustless's reason for looking for the poneglyphs would be so frivolous and careless. Don't be so surprised, there are very few things in this world that can satisfy me. Dustless's words were full of helplessness, and he was speaking from the bottom of his heart. From Robin's stunned and doubtful look, she seemed to think that it was a lie. I'm not interested in the poneglyphs. If you insist on looking for a far-fetched purpose, it's nothing more than searching for the truth. Don't you think it's ridiculous to be fooled by the past 800 years like a clown? Dustless stared at the doubtful Robin and asked. This. I think I have some understanding. Robin nodded, and her clear eyes were still a little confused. She vaguely understood Dustless's meaning. Dustless wasn't interested in the truth of history. Who was right and who was wrong had nothing to do with him. It was 800 years later, and everything in the past had changed. It had turned into a pile of yellow soil, and everything had lost its meaning. The only thing that annoyed him was that if you died, you died. Why did you have to leave behind a bunch of deceptive mysteries that harmed the future generations? You played the whole world like a chess piece in the palm of your hand. This was also the reason why Dustless couldn't accept it. No one wanted to be deceived by a corpse that had decayed hundreds of years ago. Others might not care, but Dustless had a bone-deep hatred for it. Chapter 6:15. His tone was resolute and decisive, and it was obvious that he was not joking. Nico Robin's eyes widened as she looked at Dustless incredulously. She didn't expect such a ridiculous reason. She could only smile bitterly. Perhaps this is the mind of the Tenryuzu people. They eat, drink, play, and do things for no purpose. They just want to have fun. Will the Straw Hat really invite me to join their pirate group in the future? Although Dustless has confirmed it again and again, Nico Robin's heart was still full of doubts. Dustless has now clearly explained what will happen in the next 10 years. How can she not be surprised? It seems that everything will play out according to the script set by Dustless. Maybe there will be accidents, but it's just a trivial matter. Don't worry about it. People who don't have the power and try to change the development of history will only be crushed to pieces. Dustless vowed that Robin joining the Straw Hat Pirates is a sure thing, and he can use the Straw Hat Pirates to decipher the poneglyph. Staying with him will attract unnecessary trouble. Tenryuzu and the only remaining scholars of Ohara are mixed together. It's very attractive to think about this topic. After that, after the collection of the poneglyph, what should we do with the pirates? Robin asked curiously. After that? That's unnecessary. After they have no value, we will kill them all. Dustless murderously said. Even though he has a good relationship with Dustless, he won't change his position because of this. Unless Monkey D. Luffy is sensible, Dustless doesn't mind letting him live. If he doesn't, he will end up like Uzumaki Naruto. You have grown up so much. I have to take back the power of the Sharingan that I lent you. Dustless whispered. When he secretly brought the young Nico Robin to Mariewa, Dustless was afraid that she would be in danger, so he lent her his dojutsu. Now Robin has the power to protect herself, and there is the protection of Crocodile. The power of Sharingan continues to stay in her body is just a burden. Time flew by quickly. After instructing Nico and Robin on many important matters, it was almost dawn. The three of them were not ordinary humans. Even if they stayed up for an entire night, their expressions would not change. Robin then used his agile movements to leave without anyone noticing. It was as if nothing had happened. At the same time, Dustless also brought the bloodline factor information he obtained to Dressrosa through a secret channel, and successfully fell into the hands of Caesar. Caesar immediately carried out various experiments and accelerated the production of the artificial devil fruit. Because Fengche village was too remote, no one cared about it. Bandits would often visit this place. On the mountain road, a group of bandits was about to go to the town to rob, but a strange figure suddenly flashed. He had a handsome face and fair skin. At first glance, he was the son of a wealthy family. Pretty boy, hand over all your valuables and I'll leave your corpse intact. The ferocious bandit stood out. Seeing that Wu Qin was dressed like a young master from a wealthy family, he immediately warned. At the same time, he shook the machete in his hand, full of threat. Sig Mountain Bandits, it should be you. The king of your group of rats is called Sig, and he has a bounty of 8 million berries. Ignoring the threat of the bandits, Dustless said to himself, and at the same time, his eyes began to twist sharply, turning into dark red magatama, staring at the group of people with no expression. You called me the Rat King. As the leader, Sig's old face twitched fiercely. He stepped forward and his old face turned green. He waved his hand and said with hatred, it's not too late to cut him up and search him, so that he doesn't have to struggle. Since the boss gave the order, the group of bandits naturally did not dare to disobey, and they rushed toward Dustless. You group of bandits can fight with Akagami of Yonko, 4 emperors, and indirectly take one of his arms. It can be regarded as a blessing from the ancestral grave. A faint ripple appeared in his scarlet eyes, and the aggressive group of bandits instantly fell to the ground like dead dogs. Guru! At this moment, the Den Mushi in his arms suddenly rang. It was used by Dustless and Hawkeye. Did you kill the guy called Baron Egi? Before Hawkeye spoke, Dustless asked in advance. Eating the dark fruit has to pay a price, and this unbearable price is life. Do you think you can be safe after eating the dark fruit with the blessing of Bigumamu? What a fool. Although it is a little more troublesome, it has been done. Hawkeye was a little tired, but he was full of energy. It is very difficult to quietly kill the people protected by Bigumamu. He must find a chance to kill them. Otherwise, once he is discovered, he will be besieged. Therefore, Hawkeye wasted a lot of time looking for the right opportunity. But there is one thing, Kaido and Bigumamu seem to have colluded. I don't know what they are planning. On the other side of the Den Mushi, Hawkeye's cautious voice sounded. The destructive power of the 2 Yonko, 4 emperors, is beyond imagination, and their power can even defeat the Whitebeard pirates. Kaido and Bigu's mom could easily restrain Whitebeard, and even severely injure Whitebeard, and their fleets could crush Whitebeard's fleet with overwhelming power. Don't worry, I have already predicted the collusion of the Yonko, 4 emperors. A pirate is a pirate. There is nothing they can't do under absolute interests. Dustless was calm. He had already predicted that this day would come. Not colluding means that it is likely to be destroyed. Even if there is a grudge, it must be cut off and forgotten. Otherwise, it will be a dead end, so even if there is a grudge in the past, it must be eliminated. Compared with life, nothing is more important. You are very indifferent. Hawkeye's tone was speechless. When 2 Yonko, 4 emperors, join forces, there is absolutely no force in the world that can easily crush Universal. Chapter 6:16. The strength of a Yonko, 4 emperors, almost dominates all the seas and can be called an invincible existence, like an emperor, the strongest existence above all creatures. The strength of 2 Yonko, 4 emperors, is self-evident, and the strong vibration emitted by them is enough to affect the whole world. This guy doesn't know how to be anxious at all. Hawkeye can't help admiring Dustless's calm mentality. The Yonko, 4 emperors, teaming up is not a joke. If you are not careful, you will be suppressed by the absolute power that can burn the world. You will never be able to raise your head. So what, are we going to beg for mercy in front of those 2 guys, Hawkeye? Dustless on the other side of the Den Mushi asked, his frivolous tone was extremely indifferent. The Emperor is not anxious, but the eunuch is anxious. Hawkeye suddenly realized that he was thinking too much. Dustless is not worried, and there is no need to worry. Even if the sky falls, Dustless will be the first to take the hit. Only when Dustless collapsed would it be their group of underlings' turn. Then again, both the Big Imam pirates and the Kaido pirates have been hit hard. Even if they join forces with each other, they won't be able to take any practical action in a short time. After lurking around Big Imam for a while, Hawkeye knew the current situation of the Big Imam pirates. The entire fleet was beaten by Whitebeard. Even Big's mother was wounded, so it was easy to imagine the miserable fate of the crew and sailors of the fleet. Kaido is not that strong, he is not as good as Big Imam. Dustless said on the other side of the Den Mushi. Not to mention that the 2 of them were working together now. Even if they were working in collusion with each other at their peak, Wu Chen was not afraid at all. Even if the number of people is not as good as Big Imam and Kaido pirates, the absolute strength is enough to crush everything, and the role of the human wave tactic is minimal. Absolute strength is Dustless's confidence, so he is not afraid of Kaido and Big Imam. After a casual chat, Dustless closed the Den Mushi and turned to look at the bandits on the ground with a cruel smile on his face. For the sake of world peace, it was better to eliminate the Yonko as soon as possible. The first to raise the butcher's knife was the Akagami, Red Hair, pirates who hated Dustless the most. The enmity between the 2 sides had accumulated for a long time, and it had already reached the point of being incompatible like fire and water. Dustless naturally wouldn't let go of this extremely rare opportunity. I'm sorry, Garp. I might have to make use of your grandson this time. Dustless said coldly with a cold glint in his eyes. An unprecedentedly vicious plan quietly formed in his heart. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame Red Hair Shanks for asking for it. There was no one else to blame. He was completely caught in his own trap. Red Hair Shanks could make use of D, and Dustless was no exception. He could also make use of D, and give him a taste of his own medicine. No matter how optimistic Red Hair's temperament was, he would still feel despair if he was hurt by someone he trusted and bet on in the next era. Dustless is going to attack him step by step until his spirit collapses. Monkey. D. Luffy. If you want to complain, you should hate the word D in your name, so you were valued by Red Hair Shanks, so you were calculated by me. Scarlet eyes widened again and ripples visible to the naked eye appeared. The bandits on the ground stood up again. Their eyes were blank, and their eyes were empty and lifeless. It was as if their inner souls had been taken away and they had become walking corpses. Obviously, they had been controlled by Dustless's Sharingan and had lost their ability to think. Dustless is now the one who dominates their consciousness. Red-haired Shanks had absolute trust in Luffy, but Dustless didn't go against that kid's wishes. He had to borrow Luffy's hands to once again inflict heavy damage on his unbearable heart, until red-haired Shanks' spirit collapsed. He planned to use the same method as Beckman to trample on red-haired Shanks. No, this time, he wanted to be even crueler than the last time. In the past, he was able to escape from death. This time, even if he could not kill him directly, he wanted to leave an indelible mark on Red Hair's body. "Look at my eyes, you waste." With a loud shout, Dustless shouted at the bandits. "They are the most important actors in the play, and they can't be missing. Now go and catch that kid Monchi D. Luffy for me. Remember, the Akagami, Red Hair, pirates must see that it was you who did it." With a cold light in his eyes, Dustless ordered. The bandits nodded blankly and immediately rushed toward the windmill town, in the direction of the bandit house where Luffy usually goes. Although the plan is a bit rough, Dustless is sure that it will succeed. Sometimes the simpler the strategy, the more unexpected the effect. This group of hired actors is rough, but their opponents are the same pirates, so it shouldn't be a problem to grab Luffy. Sure enough, after about an hour, this group of bandits did indeed come back with a fainted little ghost. The only thing that was not complimentary was the fact that there were pursuers behind them. "Kid." As far as the eye could see, a golden-haired child with a face full of freckles and a hat was immediately reflected in Wu Chen's eyes. These two guys. One of them is the kid named Sabo, and the other seems to be the son of One Piece, Roger, Portgas D. Ace. Wu Chen couldn't help but be speechless. He knew that these two brats were ferocious, but it was inexcusable for a group of bandits to be chased by two brats. Wansho Tensei. After looking at the child in the hands of one of the bandits, Dustless's right hand exuded a strong gravitational force and easily sucked Luffy over. Then he looked at the approaching bandits, and with a calm and powerful light shout, suddenly the dust splashed, and the ground was full of smoke. The tyrannical repulsion swept out, and the ground where Dustless was standing also had a deep pit. Shinra Tensei. Chapter 617. The tyrannical repulsive force was extremely small, but the strength was unexpectedly strong. The people who came in contact with it were all bounced back like particles. It was as simple as eating or drinking water. The bandits who were too close to Dustless were bounced back without any effort. They fell heavily on the ground and directly fainted with white foam coming out of their mouths. Looking at Luffy in his hand expressionlessly, Dustless's Sharingan rotated rapidly. His finger lightly touched Luffy's forehead and implanted a transcription seal in his eyes. Of course, because he isn't an Uchiha, he doesn't have the Sharingan, so Dustless just implanted a genjutsu that doesn't harm the body. It's a genjutsu that can only be released at a specific time when meeting a specific person, transcription seal. It's like a ticking time bomb, no one knows when it will explode, and the probability of the people in this world being able to resist it is 0. "You bastard, let go of Luffy." The young and firm voice rang in his ears. Dustless raised his head. It was Ace who was holding a broadsword and Sabo who was holding an iron water pipe. Both of them stared at Dustless ferociously. Their clear eyes were replaced by murderous intent. They were like beasts that just broke out of their cages. It's hard to imagine that children of a few years old have such gloomy eyes. "So what if I don't let go? What do you think two brats can do?" Dustless asked with interest as his eyes fell on the two of them. In the future, these two will be popular figures in the world, but now, they are just wild vegetables on the roadside. No one cares about them. "I will kill you, damn bastard." Ace's murderous intent turned into a cold light shooting out of his eyes. He swooped down at an extremely fast speed. The moment he touched Dustless, his body agilely jumped a few meters high, and his broadsword flashed with cold light, chopping down towards Dustless's head. So young and so ruthless, your temper is the same as your father's. Ace's fiery temper, which valued his companions, was very similar to Gold Roger in the past. He wouldn't allow anyone to bully his companions and friends. To a certain extent, this was the tradition of the entire D clan. They all valued their companions. Boring. Dustless stared emotionlessly at the falling blade. He calmly stretched out 2 fingers and grabbed the sharp blade. Clang! Along with the sound of metal clashing against metal, he looked up and saw Dustless's 2 fingers easily catching the blade in the air. The cold blade stopped above Dustless's head, unable to move. Those 2 slender fingers were as hard as steel. How is this possible? The inexperienced Ace's eyes widened as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. To be able to catch a blade with his bare hands, this was the first time he had seen such a shocking scene. Bang! With a hook of his thumb, a ferocious repulsive force immediately shot out. A powerful and ferocious air wave immediately whizzed out. Ace, who was completely unaware of it, flew out powerlessly like a kite, smashing into a few trees. Poochie! With some ruddy blood stains on the corner of his mouth, Ace stood up strongly. Although his body was swaying as he stood up, his eyes were firmly locked on Dustless, or Luffy in Dustless's hand. This kid is worthy of being the son of One Piece. His willpower is surprisingly strong. Seeing this, Dustless nodded slightly and looked at the young Ace in a new light. Strong willpower, this seems to be the tradition of the D clan. The physiques of the humans in this world are ridiculously strong. Even a child is so resistant to beatings. Wu Qin said incredulously as ripples appeared in his eyes that were as tranquil as an ancient well. They are all humans, but in this world where pirates run rampant, their physique seems to be much more resistant to beatings than Naruto's. Call Luffy out for me, or I will kill you. Glaring at Dustless, little Ace gnashed his teeth and roared. His face was as ferocious as a devil's. At the same time, he took out a gun from nowhere and pointed the black muzzle at Dustless. It seems that if he says no, Ace will not hesitate to shoot. Alala, alala. What a scary little demon. Guns are dangerous toys. With a smile, Dustless then put Luffy on the ground, raised his hands, made a gesture of surrender, and looked at Ace with fear. Is this okay, scary kid? At least you know what's good for you. Glaring fiercely at Dustless, Ace gave Sabo a look. The latter nodded, then quickly trotted to Dustless's side, picked up the sleeping Luffy, and turned away. The 3 figures quickly disappeared into the woods. In the future, I will kill you with my own hands. Before I go to sea, don't let your head be taken away by others. In the dark forest, Ace's angry and gloomy roar could be heard. Probably because he was played by Wu Qin today, he felt unusually angry and uncomfortable. If you can really do it, I'll wait and see. Dustless put down his raised arms. For Ace's words, Dustless just smiled. Staring at the black shadow that has disappeared, and thinking of the low-key Akagami, red hair, pirates in Windmill Town, Dustless's eyes were cold, and then he looked at the unconscious bandits on the ground, and the Sharingan in his pupils turned and twisted again. These bandits' show was not over yet, and it was too early to give them a holiday. Afterward, Wu Qin walked around the Windmill Town alone. When he didn't find anything special, he left. He wasn't interested in such a remote place. For this secret mission, Dustless did not take a warship. He could only walk alone into the depths of the sea. The soles of his feet were covered with a thin layer of chakra, and he walked on the endless sea like a dragonfly skimming the water. His leisurely pace was more like an afternoon stroll. Dustless had mastered the beginner's skill of treading water decades ago. Chapter 6:18. On the endless sea, a single figure is clearly visible, stepping on the sea, looming in the heavy clouds, giving people an unfathomable feeling. Sometimes it's just a small step, but it gives people the illusion that they have moved hundreds of meters. Bucky Pirates. Captain has a bounty of Bucky the Clown with a bounty of 15 million berries. They are also former crew members of One Piece, but they are different. Looking at the bounty list in his hand, Dustless was quite puzzled. Shanks and Bucky are both Roger's crew members, but their strength and status seem to be different. Dustless, who wanted to tease Bucky, suddenly lost his mind. He thought that Bucky might be hiding his strength, and there must be other unknown conspiracies and purposes in the dark. Looking at the huge red nose on the bounty list, Dustless guessed that this guy is a character who is responsible for comedy. After the identity of the honorary admiral was exposed, the world knew that Dustless came to East Blue. Although it was very secretive and unknown, there is no impenetrable wall in the world, and the pirates who heard the news along the way fled in a hurry. Rumble, the Den Den Mushi in his arms rang, and the special Den Den Mushi was used by Dustless to communicate with Sengoku. There is a big problem in the Sabaody archipelago, and the Tenryubito living there was beaten. Without waiting for Dustless to speak, Sengoku's anxious tones suddenly came, with unprecedented puzzlement and entanglement. During his time as the fleet admiral, it seems that no good things have happened, and the news all day long is bad news that makes him vomit blood. Tenryubito was beaten. What does it have to do with me? Hearing this, Dustless asked, with the meaning that it has nothing to do with him. This, asked by Dustless, Sengoku was suddenly speechless. When Dustless was an honorary admiral, he made 3 rules and could refuse to obey the orders of the fleet admiral. However, now that the Tenryubito was beaten, only an admiral can solve the problem. Sengoku can only find Dustless to solve the crisis for him. No matter what, you are of the same race. You should work together. After pondering for a long time, Sengoku found an extremely lame reason to fool Dustless, a reason that even he couldn't convince himself. Then there was a lot of coaxing and pestering. The warring states signed many unequal treaties, which barely moved Dustless. That damn bastard really knows how to stir up trouble. Seeing that Dustless agreed, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. His voice was filled with deep exhaustion. During the Marine Fleet Admiral period, nothing good happened. This is normal. Not all pirates are afraid of celestial dragons. It's natural for the pigs to be beaten. Dustless is calm as usual. Tenryubito thinks too highly of himself. At the same time, he also underestimates the blood of some pirates. There are a lot of pirates like Luffy who are full of blood. Once they are impulsive, it is not impossible for them to violently beat Tenryubito. Moreover, some pirates who are proud of their strength will not put Tenryubito in their eyes at all. For example, Kaido is a Yonko, 4 emperors. Tenryubito has no deterrence in front of them. The only thing that Dustless is curious about is that the pirate who dared to beat Tenryubito doesn't know who he is. Damn Admiral, how can he appear in such a place? In the distance, a battleship was hidden in the clouds. The clown Buggy looked at the distant sea with binoculars. Dustless came into sight and made him sweat and weak. East Blue is a small place that no one cares about and is even forgotten. Not to mention a Marine Admiral, even a Rear Admiral doesn't exist, because East Blue is recognized as the weakest sea among the 4 seas. Raise the sails, let's get away quickly. After a moment of contemplation, Buggy took back his binoculars and ordered the crew. There is no need for an admiral to do it. A rear admiral can easily disintegrate their pirate group. Staying here and being found is just looking for death. They will be crushed like ants. Oh, please give me a ride. Just as Buggy sighed at his wit and took advantage of the situation to slip away, a slightly annoyed complaint suddenly came to his ears. Sengoku is really ordering people around. This is East Blue. It's not far from the Sabaody archipelago. I can only ask you to give me a ride, but it's best to delay the time. Looking at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him, Buggy seemed to be unable to accept it for a while. He wiped the corner of his eyes and thought it was his illusion. After a few seconds of silence, the Buggy pirates burst into a pig-like scream. The Admiral is here. Within about a minute, the entire battleship was filled with this kind of ear-piercing screams, and Dustless subconsciously covered his ears. Looking at the clown Buggy, Dustless keenly smelled a different feeling. His sharp eyes went straight to the clown Buggy's eyes. His clear eyes saw through his inner thoughts. Although this guy looks like he has seen a ghost on the surface, he is actually very calm. This is interesting. Staring at Buggy with interest, Dustless was quite surprised. Although on the surface this guy is a comedic character, Dustless still sees the difference in him. Even if his eyes almost fall out, it can still be noticed that the clown Buggy is actually very calm and there is no kind of panic. It's all a disguise. I said. Once a crew member of One Piece, Roger, Red Hair Shanks, even if his strength is low, he shouldn't have mixed up to this point. This guy must have an ulterior motive for hiding in East Blue. Looking back, Dustless secretly guessed. After a while, he was too lazy to think about it. Everyone has an unknown secret. If he wants to explore the origin of all this, even if his life is infinite, it is not enough. Dustless doesn't have the leisure to care about the clown Buggy. Take me to the Sabaody archipelago, so I can let you go. Anyway, I'm just a trainee marine. Looking at Buggy lazily, Dustless casually found a couch to sleep. This kid is very smooth. He should know what is the most correct choice. Chapter 6:19. Seeing that Dustless was so casual, falling asleep on the couch and even hearing a slight snoring sound, the clown Buggy suddenly had a feeling of crying without tears. Not to mention being stared at by a Marine Admiral for no reason, the other side still wanted to stay on his ship. This is more uncomfortable than eating 100 tons of flies. Many pirates around him were holding big swords and were trying to make a name for themselves, but they were stared back by Buggy's ferocious eyes. If a Marine Admiral was so easy to kill, the world government should have been destroyed hundreds of years ago. This guy, forget it, I can only go to the Sabaody archipelago. After thinking about it, Buggy decided to go to the Sabaody archipelago. He had carefully hidden and planned for many years, and it was unwise to suddenly meet a Marine Admiral. What's more, Dustless only said that he would temporarily give him a ride. Although Marines' words are often more untrustworthy than pirates, Buggy chose to listen to Dustless. What's more, going to the Sabaody archipelago is just the right time to secretly visit Pluto Rayleigh. They haven't seen each other for many years. Why are you still standing there foolishly? Hurry up and start the ship. Our destination is the Sabaody archipelago. The clown Buggy rolled his eyes and shouted loudly. He was afraid that Wuchen couldn't hear him, so he raised his voice. He scolded the crew in his heart. With their strength, it would take at least 20 years of hard work to fight a Marine Admiral. Although the Marine Admiral in front of him is young, there is no doubt that he is an admiral. The Marine headquarters will not do that kind of boring stupid thing. Being able to sit in the position of a Marine Admiral at such a young age shows that this person's ability is extraordinary and his strength is superior. Surprisingly smart. Dustless, who was squinting, opened his eyes and looked quietly at Buggy, who was giving orders, and nodded secretly. The ferocious eagle often keeps his claws closed. Only when he finds the right opportunity and a suitable prey will he reveal his sharp claws that are enough to tear the skull. Obviously, Dustless is not his prey. And Buggy also knows that a duel is ever-changing. Maybe in just a moment, the identity of each other will change dramatically. Instead, he turned from a hunter to a prey waiting to be slaughtered. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. Buggy was quite forthright. Although he was a little narrow-minded, sometimes he could clearly distinguish between right and wrong. During this period, he also took out wine and meat to entertain Dustless and even started a party. At first, Dustless thought that Buggy was going to use some drugs to cheat him. After trying a few mouthfuls, he found that he was overthinking. Dustless couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for him. After 3 days of ups and downs, they arrived at the Sabaody archipelago. Dustless also fulfilled his promise and did not attack Buggy's pirates and slipped away for them. He thought that everything would be over when he arrived at the Sabaody archipelago. He didn't expect that the entire island would be surrounded by densely packed navies. Not even a fly could fly out. The ones leading the encirclement were Sakazuki and Kazan. As for Borsellino, he had already gone with Bartholomew Bear to be Vegapunk's mice. Louis South, this young master has been beaten up. Why did you take so long to arrive? Ouch, it hurts. As soon as he walked into the temporary tent, a pig-like scream entered Dustless's ears. He looked up and saw Charles Ross, whom Mariewa had met last time. His appearance was as ugly as a pig, and the old face on the left side had been beaten and swollen, making the ugly face even more disgusting. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He was very curious about how Charles Ross could grow up to look like this. Perhaps it was a miracle that he could grow up like this. On the other hand, the female celestial dragon beside him was quite beautiful. She was Chalmers' sister, called Shalulia. This unlucky guy, after secretly scolding him for being an idiot, Dustless was speechless. This guy has a face that deserves a beating. Last time, Mariewa was thrown into the garbage by him, and this time, she was beaten up by a pirate. If he remembers correctly, in the future, the protagonist of the Beat the Flying Dragonians incident, the one who was beaten by Luffy was also Charles Ross. Make it clear to me, Charles Ross, I came to the Sabaody archipelago because someone else asked me for help. You pig, you are not in my rescue scope. Whether you live or die, you have to pray for yourself. His casual words were filled with contempt, and Chalmers was so angry that he fainted. You guy, we are all of the same race, how can you be so ruthless? Charles Ross's sister, Shalulia, asked angrily, her eyes burning with anger. Same race. Raising his eyes, he looked at her with pity. The unlucky guy in front of him was the female Tenryubito who was stunned by Dark King Rayleigh's haki. In fact, it's not impossible to ask me to catch the pirate who hurt your brother, but... Dustless's words made Shalulia's little face excited, but after seeing what Dustless took out, her white face turned red. I just need a slave to serve tea and water. If you are willing to put it on, I will fulfill your wish. Shaking the black collar in his hand, Dustless said with a generous face. Inside the tent, the naval officers bit their lips as they watched the scene unfold. Their faces twitched as if they wanted to laugh but didn't dare. Even Sakazuki, who was usually old-fashioned, had the same expression on his face, a strange expression on his face. Keeping silent, they were not qualified to intervene in the affairs of the Tenryubito. If they say too much, it will only lead to trouble. You should thank me for this kind of good thing. Not everyone can be my slave. If you are willing to take the initiative to put on the collar, I promise to arrest the murderer who hurt your brother. Dustless patted his chest and promised, mercilessly adding fuel to the fire. His expression was full of confidence. The implication was that if you don't want to put it on, your brother's enemy will also escape. Chapter 620. Shalulia's pretty face turned red, and she pointed to Dustless, who was sitting in a chair, biting her thin lips. She never thought that someone would dare to talk to her like this one day. To actually want her, a celestial dragon person, to be a slave, really daring. What made Shalolia most difficult to accept was Wu Chen's aggrieved appearance, as if he had suffered a great loss and suffered great pain. Xiao Lilia almost wanted to vomit blood. Wu Chen's reluctant look was like a thorn piercing into her heart, trampling on her arrogant self-esteem until it was worthless, leaving an impression that could never be erased. The black collar of the exclusive slave in Dustless's hand is like a stick, and a heavy blow makes her confused and confused. Even if she has a stomach full of anger, there is no place to vent it. You are a marine admiral. It is your duty to protect the celestial dragons. Shalolia shouted at Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless smiled and shrugged. I'm just a trainee admiral. If you can get Sengoku to relieve me of my duties, I'll take care of you. His indifferent look made Shalolia angry, and she felt like she had met a natural enemy. She was full of anger, but there was no suitable target to vent it. Celestial dragons will be beaten by a marine admiral, but celestial dragons beating celestial dragons is beyond the jurisdiction of the marine. What's more, Dustless himself is a celestial dragon and also a marine admiral. Even if she is unwilling, she can only endure it. Her brother was thrown into the garbage dump by Dustless. If she angered Dustless, she may be forced to become a slave. Thinking about it, Shalolia felt a chill. Is this how you Marines work? Useless waste. The angry Shalolia yelled at the Marines in the tent, making all the Marine admirals frown and quietly extinguish their anger at the same time. The exaggerated identity of the celestial dragons made them not dare to act rashly and could only swallow their anger. Compared to your useless older brother, I feel that he's more like a piece of trash. No, at the very least, some pieces of trash still have value, while your older brother's value can be compared to a pig. No, at the very least, a pig can be slaughtered for a full meal, but eating your older brother is more fatal than eating poison. Dustless said indifferently as he looked indifferently at Shalolia. Dustless mercilessly mocked Charles, who had fainted from anger. Sakazuki and Kazan were afraid of the power of the celestial dragons, but he was not. Dustless had also killed a celestial dragon before, and he was still alive. You win. Every dog has its day. Just wait and see. Glancing fiercely at Dustless, Shalolia flew into a rage out of humiliation as she looked at Dustless's face. She waved her hand and gestured for her subordinates to take Chalmers, who was lying on the stretcher, away. She then turned around and left without hesitation. Being in the same room as Dustless might shorten his life by 10 years. Sakazuki, who did it? Daring to attack a celestial dragon. Touching his smooth chin, Dustless's eyes lit up with curiosity. The one who attacked the celestial dragons was either a hothead like Luffy or a top expert comparable to an admiral. At the very least, he was extremely conceited about his own strength. He thought that even if he was faced with the pursuit of a marine admiral, he would be able to retreat safely. Sakazuki's expression was stiff, and his hoarse voice was a little embarrassed. When we came, the group had already run away. We don't know who did it for the time being. Dustless nodded, indicating that he could understand. The marine headquarters was some distance away from the Sabaody archipelago. When they arrived, the group of pirates had already fled in a hurry. As for the idiot Chalmers, he didn't even see who it was before he was hit on the spot and fainted. About half an hour later, Sakazuki explained the cause of the matter. Chalmers and a pirate had a dispute over the devil fruit. Compared with the celestial dragons, the pirate naturally couldn't fight. As a result, he could only grab the devil fruit that Chalmers spent hundreds of millions of berries to buy. It was said that the devil fruit at the auction belongs to the Paramecia system and can treat various diseases of the human body. But there are many famous pirates on the island, and there are many with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. Kazan said with a hint of eagerness to try. The same is true for Sakazuki and other Marines. Do as you like. Remember to catch all the pirates. I won't accompany you. With a wave of his hand, Dustless gave the hard work to Sakazuki and Kazan. He was not interested in those minions. Akainu and others looked at each other and didn't talk nonsense. They left the tent. About a few minutes later, the ground suddenly throbbed and trembled slightly. Dustless, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and asked softly, "What's the matter, White Zetsu?" White Zetsu's clones are all over the world's islands. Wherever people live, there are traces of White Zetsu, and the Sabaody archipelago is no exception. The pirate who stole the devil fruit from the celestial dragons is Green Pepper's subordinate. It seems that he wants to use that fruit to cure Green Pepper's bald head. The whole island is secretly full of White Zetsu's clones, and it's easy to get information. Boring. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. It's just Green Pepper. In his heyday, his bounty is only more than 500 million berries. Even if his bald head is cured, it is estimated that his strength is about the level of an admiral. In addition, there are other pirates. By the way, Law, that kid seems to be in the Sabaody archipelago. White Zetsu said as he thought of the childish figure. Dustless's precise eyes suddenly flashed with interest, and he asked in a deep voice, "How is that kid's strength now? Is he capable of performing the ultimate surgery?" White Zetsu shook his head. He really doesn't know. Anyway, Law has made rapid progress over the years. Almost all the people who fought with him were cruelly beheaded by him. Among them, there are some pirates with more than 100 million bounties. Corazone's death left an unforgettable impression on Law, which is also the source and motivation for his continuous progress. Chapter 621. With the arrival of Dustless, Marines, who had only blocked the entire island, suddenly became rampant and turned from defense to active attack. For a time, the entire Sabaody archipelago became chaotic. The Marines from all directions rushed into the depths of the island like hungry wolves, and the chickens and dogs were restless. Pirates and Marines are two natural enemies. When they get together, they can only fight. If they don't fight to the death, it will be difficult for both sides to calm down. The hatred passed down from generation to generation has been settled for a long time. It really can't be resolved. Above the giant mangrove in the Sabaody archipelago, Dustless and White Zetsu stood on the branches and looked down at the battlefield in the distance. White Zetsu couldn't help but sigh. The product of yin-yang release is surprisingly sentimental. Turning his head, Dustless faintly said, "The person who created White Zetsu is him." White Zetsu just smiled. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. White Zetsu has no scruples. He knows Dustless's temperament and will not make a big fuss over such a trivial matter. The implication is that the sentimental character is inherited from Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at White Zetsu indifferently, and his calm tone was emotionless. "I haven't seen you for a while. I didn't expect you to have a sharp tongue. Hey, this is also inherited from you." White Zetsu grinned. Everything he has was given to him by Dustless. His character and hidden skills were all inherited from Dustless. It is another portrayal of Dustless. There seemed to be two little mice moving below. His eyes drooped down and scanned the pirates below. Dustless's body flashed with photons and then turned into a straight beam of light roaring down. Boom boom boom, the earth was suddenly hit by a fierce impact, and it trembled fiercely. The surrounding ground was lifted up by tens of centimeters in an instant, and then a huge fire was swept up out of thin air. The fire was everywhere, and it was full of a burnt smell, which was nauseating. Looking closely, it turned out to be the corpses of the pirates and a large deep pit. When doctors face patients on the operating table, they are very calm. It's rare to see a doctor who treats patients while panting like you. Dustless said as he turned his head and looked at the young figure wearing a hat. He was wearing a fluffy winter fur hat with leopard spots. His eyes had dark eye bags and 2 small golden earrings on each ear. It was Trafalgar Law. Hee. I'm sorry, but I'm a quack. I only know how to kill people. Saving people is not my specialty, especially when it's the guy who almost killed me. Law's forehead was sweating, and beads of sweat kept dripping down. At this moment, the clothes on his upper body were burned. He stared at Dustless warily. His eyes were shining from time to time, and his face was ferocious. It was clear that he had become much stronger after wandering alone for so many years. Under the shadow of Corazone's death, he had trained day and night to achieve his current results. Did you avoid the range of the lightspeed kick? Turning around and putting his hands in his trouser pockets, Dustless said lazily, if I were you, I would run away quickly. Staying here is almost certain death. Or do you dare to stand here calmly because you think you have the ability to face the strength of a Marine Admiral alone? His eyes were fixed on Law. Compared with the original kid, Law has grown up a lot. He is 15 or 16 years old and has also inherited the abnormal physique of the world's humans. At a young age, he is taller than Dustless, who is nearly 1.8 meters tall. Running away is a stupid thing that only an idiot would do. Under your speed, running away is meaningless. It's better to keep your strength and fight. Luo said resolutely as his torch-like eyes locked onto Wu Qin. As a pirate, he naturally has an understanding of the top fighting power of the Marine. Their speed is enough to keep pace with the speed of light. Escaping is just a fantasy. Instead of that, it's better to fight to the death with all his strength. You're smart, but in my eyes, you're still stupid. Playing a game of hide-and-seek may give you a chance to live. Dustless chuckled, he just regarded Law as a clown. Now he is still too far away. Room. Looking at the opportunity, Law released the ability of the fruit and created a transparent hemispherical space. The transparent space was not quite large. In an instant, it wrapped Dustless's whole body and completely isolated him from the outside world. In this mysterious space, it seems to be a different small world, isolated from the world. As an admiral of the Marine, you must have heard of my ability. At the moment when he released Room, Law's tight heart relaxed. Only when Wu Qin was trapped in Room's encirclement did he feel that he had a chance of winning. Nicknamed, Surgeon of Death, Surgeon Fruit Ability, Tragafar Law. But what do you think this can change, just because you are a Surgeon Fruit Ability? Dustless asked with a sneer on his face. To be honest, except for the ability of ageless surgery, the other abilities of Surgeon Fruit have no bright spots. Hearing this, Law's eyes flashed with a fierce light and said confidently, everything within the range of Room is under my control. Even if it is a Logia ability, it will be hurt by me. The high-frequency electric shock of the automatic electric shock controlled within the space range causes the organs of the person who is hit to be damaged by the high-frequency current flowing all over the body. It can even cut the target into several pieces. Even the Logia ability can't immediately restore the original appearance. I've been talking nonsense for a long time, but I still haven't seen you do it. Since you don't do it, then don't blame me for bullying you. After that, Dustless's body glowed with countless luster and whizzed out. In just a moment, he came to Law's side and condensed his shining calf and kicked straight at his abdomen. Chapter 622. Law's pupils suddenly shrank and he did not hesitate to put his hands in front of him. He was ready for the defensive impact, but the dazzling flash suddenly subsided, as if nothing had happened. It was strangely calm. Law was stunned and opened his eyes subconsciously. Dustless came into view with a playful smile on his face, looking at him playfully, standing in front of Law, his thumb closed, and then lightly flicked toward Law's face. The air splashed with ripples, and the air waves visible to the naked eye spread out. Boom! Law, who was caught off guard, was suddenly hit, and there were obvious bloated marks on his forehead. The blood-red scars were clearly visible. He suffered an unprecedented heavy blow. His face was as pale as paper, like a willow branch drifting with the waves in the storm. He was vulnerable. Why, is your strength just like that, Law? It seems that Corazone's death did not hit you hard enough, and your hatred is not deep enough, otherwise, you would not be so fragile. Looking at Law with disdain, Dustless shook his head sarcastically, and his face was full of naked disdain. Your confident look just now, was it all for Corazon to see? I really feel sorry for Corazon. Hearing this, Law's eyes flashed with violent killing intent, his eyes turned scarlet, and he stared at Dustless unkindly. This look is good, but your appearance is a waste of this sharp look. It gives people a feeling of blindness. That is, it's a slap in the face. Shaking his head hopelessly, Dustless looked at Law, whose face was getting darker and darker, and did not hesitate to add fuel to the fire. Once he thought that this kid could do immortality surgery, he would not hesitate to use genjutsu to control him. Wu Qin was now able to be immortal and indestructible. His female confidants were still unable to reach this level. He could only control Luo to temporarily use it on one of them. This is also the fundamental purpose of Dustless's control of Law. This kid has no outstanding ability in other aspects. The reason why he is stimulated is to force out his strength and see if he has the strength to do immortality surgery now. Clang clang clang, the wild sword in his hand was unsheathed and condensed into a cold light. Law's eyes were isolated from the world, like 10,000 years of ice and inhuman. Ha! Dustless made a frightened expression and looked at Law in fear. I hope you can still be so smug later. With a livid face, Law lost his calm and roared angrily. Corazon is Law's reverse scale and the person he respects the most. Just now, he caught the contempt and disdain in Dustless's tone, which has indirectly aroused Law's killing intent. Room slaughterhouse. Aiming at the tiny loopholes in Dustless's body, Luoidao swept out. He thought that he could easily divide Dustless, but the unexpected scene made him stunned. Clang clang clang, Dustless stood quietly in the same place, without the slightest discomfort in his body, but there would be a roaring impact of steel, which could not shake him at all. It was extremely difficult to force Dustless to move his feet, let alone divide him. The strangest thing is that Dustless's whole body is covered with black dark skin, like steel integrated with the skin, which is extremely strong. What is this? Law's tone, with surprise and doubt, muttered to himself incredulously. After wandering in North Blue for so many years, he has seen such a strange ability for the first time. His throat twitched unconsciously, and Law's face was full of amazement. He saw this strange scene for the first time. Is this the rumored armament hockey? Thinking of the legend of armament hockey, Law was shocked. This is the first time he has met someone who can use armament hockey, especially this kind of whole-body armament hockey, which is unheard of. He didn't expect that this kind of trick, which can touch the body of Logia's fruit, can also defend against his surgeon fruit. The clang 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 steel impact that came from Dustless's body was actually his attack. But it did not cause any substantial damage, and even Dustless's skin did not break. Your surgeon fruit is very good, it is invincible, but if you think you can defeat me with this special attack, it is tantamount to a fool's dream. Dustless, who entered the state of armament hockey, said indifferently. The ability of surgeon fruit is unsolvable. In the special space created by Law, everything is dominated by him, and armament hockey can be defended to a certain extent. In the future, Doflamingo will use armament hockey to defend against Law's slaughterhouse. Do you think your ability is invincible and you can do whatever you want? Every day there are many pirates on the Grand Line who think so, but they all end up dead. Dustless, who was shining with black light, said. There are countless pirates who have the ability of surgeon fruit, but in the end, they still step into the abyss of hell, which also shows that there is no invincible ability in this world, and the key is comprehensive ability in all aspects. No, I can't die yet, I have to avenge Corazon. Lowell roared hysterically as he stared at Dustless, who was slowly approaching. Dustless didn't take a step forward, and his heart would be depressed and desperate. This monster with black paint and steel bones is enough to defend against all attacks. It is no different from invincible. His attack and defense are perfect. It is almost impossible to shake him. Fragile. Seeing Law's eyes flickering, Dustless had already guessed that he was exhausted and had done his best. Boom. In the special space created by Law, it had no effect on Dustless at all, and he flew out with a punch. Caw caw caw, the mangrove trees that build the Sabaody archipelago were smashed and trembled, showing how fierce the force was. The meaning of armament hockey is actually the same as Kansusanu. Although it is not as powerful as Kansusanu, it is more flexible and can move freely. It is easier to control than Kansusanu's bulky body. And the power of armament hockey is also quite good. Chapter 623. Although its power is not as great as that of Kansusanu, it also has advantages, each has its own strengths and weaknesses, and it all depends on the geographical environment. A place like the Sabaody archipelago may not be able to withstand the complete Kansusanu's knife and it will be dismembered. There is no need to do that to an exaggerated extent. Cough, cough, cough. His throat couldn't help but vomit blood stains, and his abdomen was hit by Dustless's heavy punch, and there were already traces of depression, and he was only one step away from completely stepping into the coffin. If it weren't for Dustless's deliberate mercy, Law's abdomen would have become a bloody hole and been penetrated by the powerful force of armament hockey. Do you still want to stand up? Your willpower is strong. Seeing Law's face, Dustless nodded slightly and did not hesitate to give a look of appreciation. Although in the eyes of Dustless, Law is now as fragile as a sheep and can be killed at will, it is undeniable that this guy has been practicing hard all year round and has honed the heart of a strong man. In the future, there will definitely be a place for him in the vast sea. However, fate is ruthless, and he is regarded as something in the bag by Dustless, the big hungry wolf. His fate has been doomed. Dustless glanced at Law and then took it back. He had no intention of killing him, at least not now. He walked away with his head held high, but Law's unwillingness to give up sounded in his ears. Mr. Corazon said that the race with D in the name can turn something rotten into something magical. I can't lie here. Since D can do what people can't do, how can I lie in this ghost place? Turning his head and glancing at him with pity, Dustless sighed that he was poisoned too deeply. Sometimes when you know too much, you will feel that your fate is full of twists and turns, and your life is full of ups and downs, and things are changeable. Like a clown, you will be played by the karma set by God, and you will only suffer more blows and even distort your heart. If you don't know this, everything will not be so complicated, but you will live happily and not be distressed by intrigues. Sometimes ignorance is also a kind of happiness. What can you do if you are D? You are not Monkey D. Luffy. There is no protagonist aura. Sweeping him, Dustless raised his thumb and gathered golden photons in the front, condensed into a small golden, pointed at Law's body and shot straight out. Laser Poochie, the whistling light easily penetrated Law, leaving a bloody hole in his left shoulder. After several tortures, he finally fell to the ground with serious injuries and his consciousness. These injuries may be fatal to ordinary people, but for pirates like Law who are constantly training themselves, although they are serious, they are not fatal, because Dustless deliberately avoids the vital organs of his body. From the point of view of a genius doctor like Luo, even if he could not operate on himself, there was still a way to save his life. Boom, boom, the ground suddenly trembled, and a strong storm swooped down. The pirates and marines who were fighting around were hit by this strong impact. Their eyes turned white and their mouths frothed as they were stunned. This unparalleled Haushiku Haki. There is such a powerful character on this island. This kind of pure Haushiku Haki is already considered to be perfect. It is very rare in the second half of the Grand Line. Dustless's eyes lit up, and he was a little surprised. In his mind, he could vaguely see a figure with an arrogant face and a big belly. The figure's bright eyes were filled with contempt, looking at everyone with disdain. Mr. General. That old man, Green Pepper All, went berserk. The Marine officer who hurried over said with a tone of anxiety and urgency. He even ignored the unconscious Law lying on the ground. Compared with Green Pepper, this kid is just a random fish on the side of the road, not worth mentioning. What about Sakazuki and Kazan? Dustless asked calmly. Both of them already have the strength of an admiral, but their ranks are still vice-admirals. Together, they can definitely capture Green Pepper, and it's easy to stop him. No matter how powerful Green Pepper is in his heyday, he can't resist the siege of two admirals. There are too many pirates on the island, and some of them are mysterious masters. Sakazuki and Mr. Akiji are tied down by them to deal with other pirates. Dustless frowned when he heard this. He didn't remember any masters in the Sabaody archipelago. Is it him? The figure of Pluto Rayleigh popped up in his mind. Dustless secretly guessed. Rayleigh is still in his peak period and is not as old as he will be in the future. If it's him, it's not a problem to contain either Sakazuki or Kazan. Boom. Boom. Boom, another monstrous momentum spread out, rolling up bursts of smoke and dust, like a wild beast breaking out of its cage, venting the madness in its heart. That guy is really arrogant. Garp made him bald in the past and he didn't learn anything. Now he's coming out to make trouble. Do you think I'll let you slip away like Garp? His eyes were cold, and his overbearing eyes looked through the dense forest. He saw a strong old man who could shatter the earth with a wave of his hand. It's worth mentioning that at this moment, Green Pepper no longer showed any signs of going bald. His head was like a sharp thorn. Dustless could even see the arrogant smile on his face. Green Pepper may be retaliating against Mr. Garp for leaving him a shadow, the Marine who came to inform Green Pepper said bitterly. Garp offended him, but he didn't dare to find trouble with him. Instead, he bullied these small fries. It's ridiculous. On the contrary, Wuchen looked at Green Pepper indifferently and sighed sadly. It's a pity that the head that just recovered is going to be bald again. In addition, he will be imprisoned in a dark place like Impel Down. But this is also his own fault, he can't blame anyone else. Dustless said to himself emotionlessly. If he was Green Pepper, he would run away immediately and stay away from this place. Chapter 624. There is no need to show off just because he has some strength. There are countless strong people in this world, and there will always be someone stronger. Now Don Chinjo is quite unlucky to meet Dustless, a butcher who kills without blinking. He can only blame him for being arrogant, thinking that he can be invincible and despise everything in the world. Everything needs to be looked at with equal eyes, and the appearance of colored glasses also means that this person has arrogance. Now Don Chinjo is like this. After a moment of contemplation, Dustless took him to the center of Don Chinjo's chaos. The geology has undergone amazing changes, and the broken ground is like a spider web in a mess, reflecting Don Chinjo's strength is indeed extraordinary. A duel with the strength of an admiral can change the surrounding environment without any effort. 10,000 Mammoth Heaven. Gently lifting his palm, a narrow black hole appeared in Dustless's palm, exuding a majestic gravitational force. The unscrupulous Don Chinjo suddenly realized the existence of Dustless, his sharp eyes vaguely flashed with dazzling lightning, and his cold eyes went straight to Dustless. Admiral. Aware of Dustless's location, Don Chinjo said. Eyes narrowed, aware of the gravitational force enveloping his body. Don Chinjo's breathing stagnated, his face full of horror, sharp eyes looking at Dustless, full of vigilance. The youngest admiral in history, this is what the outside world calls Dustless. Although he is the so-called honorary admiral, no one cares about that these days. Stepping into the position of an admiral at a young age indirectly means that he is a monster with superior strength. Tense nerves, trying to stabilize his body with all his strength, but being constantly pulled by the powerful gravitational force, any resistance is useless. Go to hell. Seeing that he can't stop his body, Don Chinjo roared and turned from defense to offense. With the traction of gravity, like a cannonball, he rushed to Dustless's face, the spiked head covered with armament hockey, like an electric drill, spinning at a crazy high speed. It is self-evident what will happen to a normal human being if hit by this. Garp has already hit your head, but looking at your impulsive appearance, it should be. Seeing Green Pepper advancing instead of retreating, the gravitational force in Dustless's hands suddenly extinguished. He opened his arms to embrace the sky, and a force that was completely opposite to the previous gravitational force swept out of thin air. Shinra Tensei. Bang! The strange repulsive force was so powerful that Chinjo, who was caught off guard, was sent flying. A long and narrow crack appeared on the ground, and he fell heavily to the ground. His strength wasn't very strong, so Green Pepper, who had a frightening physique, was only slightly injured. An ability to combine both offense and defense. How troublesome. Staring at Dustless, Don Chinjo secretly guessed. The top of his head turned black again, covered with a higher density of armament hockey. Standing up and staring at Dustless, Don Chinjo's eyes were not filled with fear, instead, they were full of fighting spirit. Lasers. A straight beam of light whizzed over, and Green Pepper, who had been so pleased with himself, was immediately engulfed. His entire body was engulfed in flames, and his entire being was annihilated by the crimson flames. Sneak attack. You Marines are as despicable as ever. Chinjo's slightly angry roar came out of the fire, and then a dark giant stepped out of the flames. The powerful roar mixed with the presence of a domineering presence spread to every corner of the island. Sneak attack. Have you become so arrogant after recovering your full strength? Do you think you are worthy of my sneak attack? A ghostly whisper, without warning, rang in Chinjo's ears. Suddenly, he turned his head and saw a golden calf whizzing over. Light speed kick. The voice was full of ruthlessness, and the power condensed on the foot was full of indifference. A merciless kick fell, and Chinjo was suddenly nowhere to be seen. Boom boom boom, the black shadow that was kicked out hit a large building, and in an instant, it was smashed into pieces and turned into countless broken walls. Chinjo was lying among them, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. It's not a sneak attack, you must have realized. Your huge body is not enough to keep up with my speed. As for the sneak attack, you are just deceiving yourself. The cold voice spread out, Dustless said expressionlessly. Human reaction nerves are limited, and the speed of light is beyond the scope of human seriousness. Even if he can perceive the existence of Dustless through observation hockey, he can't keep up with his attack frequency. It will create the illusion of a sneak attack, but in fact, Dustless is rushing in a straight line. Dustless's speed is too fast, and it is not an exaggeration to describe it as 10,000 miles in a glance. Although the distance of movement is limited, in Chinjo's eyes it is such an exaggerated speed. Through observation hockey, he can predict and even locate Dustless's foothold, but he can't make a counterattack to keep up with the speed of light frequency. In particular, Chinjo's body is huge, and it is more difficult for him to move. Boom boom boom, a golden brilliance suddenly rose into the sky, full of dangerous fluctuations, and then scattered like a storm, and the broken walls that Chinjo was buried deep in instantly turned into ruins. It turned into negligible powder floating in the sky. The power of the light speed kick is obviously not comparable to the laser, and there are obvious bloodstains on Chinjo's left shoulder, and there are traces of depression. Looking at Dustless angrily, Chinjo's killing intent is obvious. Even if you stare at me so fiercely, I won't be merciful. Golden photons appeared all over his body, and in an instant he turned into a flash of light, and then swept straight into the sky. The photons floating in the air recombined and condensed, and Dustless's face appeared. The dangerous light condensed in the palm of his hand, covering an unprecedented vast area, and anyone who is shrouded in the golden light will feel a sense of horror. Yasukani no Magatama. After a while, the flash poured down like a rainstorm, and the number of boundless flashes can't be calculated, and the whole sky was dyed with a dazzling golden color. Armament hockey hardening. Seeing this, Chinjo's face twitched, and his face turned green. He did not hesitate to use his whole body's armament hockey to defend himself. This kind of horrible attack made it meaningless to escape. Chapter 625. The individual attack power of the Yasukani no Magatama may not be very strong, but it has a wide range and a dense number of attacks, which can completely make up for the lack of power. Quantity can change quality. This is the iron principle summed up by the ancient sages. Boom boom boom, sharp whistling sounds continued to reverberate through the air as the mighty energy tide swallowed Green Pepper whole. In the blink of an eye, he was annihilated. Coincidentally, Don Chinjo also became a shining person in an instant, his whole body shrouded in a bright brilliance. Clang clang clang, the roar of steel continued. Countless light bullets tried to invade Don Chinjo's body, not letting go of every inch of his skin, ruthlessly destroying it. Even with the defense of armament hockey, Dustless could vaguely hear the painful howls. Although the defense of armament hockey is amazing, it depends on who the opponent is. Ah! You are worthy of the person who once needed Lieutenant General Garp to personally deal with. Your strength is really extraordinary. Dustless's pupils were slightly enlarged, and he chuckled. After a while, the sky dyed golden became clear, and Don Chinjo was also exposed to Dustless's sight. Insincere little brat, this old man will definitely double the revenge. Don Chinjo gritted his teeth and said hatefully. The hostility in his words was so strong that he wanted to tear Dustless into pieces. Looking closely, Don Chinjo's body was covered with countless small sunken spots and bright red blood stains, all thanks to Dustless's Yasukani no Magatama. Don't be so fierce. Anyway, I didn't kill you. Dustless shrugged, and he didn't care. Hearing this, Don Chinjo's face stiffened, and his murderous aura almost solidified. His nose was crooked, and he thought in his heart, if I die, how can I take revenge? Don Chinjo said in a strange tone, I hope you don't regret it. In my life, I have never known how to write the word regret. If you have the ability, just come at me, no need to talk nonsense. Dustless's body landed on the ground, and he smiled indifferently. Giving Dustless a fierce look, Don Chinjo's feet suddenly slammed on the ground, and his huge body ignored the existence of gravity, and jumped dozens of meters high. Whoosh! Don Chinjo, who was in mid-air, rotated his body at high speed and threw out a hurricane. His sharp head turned black in an instant, covered with armament hockey that could penetrate everything. This move uses the sharp head to crush the target with the force of the fall. It's quite exaggerated. Dustless nodded. Hearing this, Green Pepper, who was hovering in the air, couldn't help but feel a burst of anger. No matter how hard he tried to suppress it, he couldn't calm himself down. Since you're exaggerating, you should at least show a shocked expression. Even if you don't respect the elderly and love the young, you should at least respect the feelings of the elderly. Don't say one thing but do another. Ba Chong Quan, Dragon All Nail, Green Pepper opening door. Seeing that Dustless was standing on the ground and not dodging, Green Pepper's eyes flashed with an ominous glint. He then used all the strength in his body to dive down. The power gathered in his sharp head was enough to easily disintegrate a mountain. Back then, he had used this move to crash into the ice continent. Just one hit was enough to create a large crack that was several kilometers long and tens of meters deep on the thick ice surface. The Sabaody archipelago was likely to collapse under the impact. You can escape like a stray dog. Anyway, this island that has suffered a heavy blow will definitely be buried with this old man's resentment. At that time, the reputation of the Marine headquarters will also be swept away. Ha ha ha. Green Pepper raised his head and laughed wildly. At the same time, he looked at Dustless from the corner of his eyes, but he didn't change his expression. Because Dustless had made him bald in the past, Green Pepper had always held a grudge against the Marine. Especially when he was trampled on by Dustless, his inner dignity had been insulted. Escape. Don't even dream about it. Dustless looked up at the falling Green Pepper with his calm eyes. He hugged the sky with his hands and gave up the idea of using armament hockey to fight back. Dustless had only been practicing armament hockey for a short time. Although he had great achievements, he was still not as good as Green Pepper, who had been playing armament hockey for most of his life. He naturally knew how to use it. If he tried to fight back, he would only break his head. Shinra Tensei. Dustless's clothes suddenly fluttered, and a repulsive force broke out of his body, forming a perfect 360-degree defense, protecting Dustless from the impact of Green Pepper. Boom! Gotcha! Shinra Tensei's defense was obviously not enough to resist Green Pepper. The repulsive force was torn open by his sharp head and easily broke through Shinra Tensei's defense. Go to hell! Green Pepper roared ferociously as he stood close to Dustless. He laughed hysterically, venting the depression in his heart. Just now, he had been mercilessly trampled by Dustless. It was like an adult violently beating up a child. His dignity was swept to the ground. When Dustless was about to be smashed into a pool of meat, the void suddenly splashed with golden light, and a large arm completely formed by special energy swept across. Boom! At the moment when it was about to touch Dustless, even the sharp head had touched Dustless's hair and was about to drill his head into brain, it was suddenly swept away by the golden fist. Boom boom boom, Green Pepper once again flew out bitterly. Coincidentally, the same scene as before, he directly smashed a large building into a pile of rubble and buried himself deep in it. Desperately may be able to make up for the gap in strength, but you and I are indeed dimensional monsters. No matter how hard you work, how desperately you fight, it will be useless in front of Kensusuno. Dustless said lightly. The indifference in his words was as if he was drinking tea. At the same time, behind his body, the golden shadow gradually condensed and turned into a golden giant with a terrible face. The golden light shrouded the sky and covered the earth. The exaggerated height made people despair. If they wanted to fight this giant head-on, they had to at least be as tall as him. Otherwise, it would be like drawing water with a bamboo basket. Chapter 626. The mighty and extraordinary giant covered Dustless. The simple and heavy armor was clearly visible, covering the giant's body. However, this giant was obviously not at its peak state, it was more like a miniature version, some of its limbs were obviously incomplete. But even so, her exaggerated figure still made people feel terrified and hopeless. The evil golden light was beyond imagination. Under the cover of the light, one would feel suffocated. The mighty and extraordinary iron fist was enough to smash a large mountain. Can you stand up this time? But it seems that you can't. Dustless sighed as Green Pepper under the ruins did not move. He had tried his best to control Kensusuno's strength, he was hoping that this strong old man could play for a while, but it seemed that Dustless thought too much. Caca, there was a throbbing sound from the ruins, and then it collapsed one after another. Then, Green Pepper could be seen crawling out of it. He was in a mess, and his whole body was bleeding. His bloody appearance was as if he had just run out of a pool full of blood. Ah! It's really scary to look like this. It seems that you still want to continue to fight. Why don't you just lie on the ground and wait for me to put the iron cuffs on you, and then escort you to Impel Down? Dustless sighed in distress. There was a world of difference between them, but he still struggled and suffered physical pain. Why should he ask for it? How can I just stand there and wait to be captured? This old man also has a dream. Boom boom boom. Before Green Pepper's voice fell, the golden rainbow fell from the sky and forcibly suppressed him. The bright light mercilessly crushed Green Pepper's huge body, pressing him into the ground. Caca, unable to withstand the brutal force, the ground constantly cracked and trembled. The huge cracks crazily swallowed the surrounding ground, mercilessly destroying the surrounding environment. After a while, the golden light condensed and formed, revealing Dustless's figure, his eyes indifferently looking at Green Pepper under his feet. His eyes were as cold as ice. People who talk about dreams are people who have the same strength. Before you talk about dreams in front of me, you should first think about how to escape from Impel Down. Don't talk like this, it's just a joke. Dustless's words were like a thorn that pierced deeply into Green Pepper's heart. His eyes were locked onto Dustless's face, as if he wanted to engrave that cold face of his into his heart forever. The look in your eyes. Is that a silent protest? Dustless asked as he stared at Green Pepper's eyeballs, which were about to pop out of their sockets. Hearing this, Kon Chinjo seemed to have accepted his fate. He removed the armament hockey state, revealing his bloody body. Between his words, he was exhausted. I used to hear that the new Marine Admiral was a monster. I always thought it was an exaggeration. Now it seems that it is not a lie. Gasping, Don Chinjo said inexplicably. Dustless couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, indifferently looking at Don Chinjo under his feet. What do you want to say? He always felt that this guy's words had a hidden meaning. Don Chinjo's eyes were vaguely sneering, which made Dustless's eyes flash fiercely. A mere stray dog dares to be so arrogant. Caw caw caw. With a sudden force on one foot, there was a crisp roar. Dustless mercilessly stepped on Don Chinjo's head. His originally sharp head was once again stepped back to its original shape by Dustless. He turned back to the bald man of the past. If that's the case, you should be more obedient. If not, I don't mind adding some more meat. Dustless sneered as he looked at Don Chinjo's limbs with cold eyes. Boom boom boom, the sound of countless cannons suddenly spread, and the sea around Sabaody was densely packed with pirates, mercilessly shelling the entire Sabaody archipelago. Indiscriminate shelling covered the entire island. Ordinary civilians are also being targeted. Seeing this, Dustless slightly frowned. This intensive shelling, including the ordinary civilians who were not involved, was also involved in this huge shelling. Aware that his head returned to its original shape, Don Chinjo's killing intent rose, and he was about to fight with Dustless again, but the stinging pain all over his body made him grimace in pain. He intended to resist, but he couldn't launch a sneak attack. Civilians. So what? This old man is a pirate, not a marine. Don Chinjo sneered. As a pirate, he only has himself in his eyes. There is no need to worry about the life and death of others. This is the most basic principle of being a pirate. Stubborn resistance. Don Chinjo hopelessly glanced at Don Chinjo. If he didn't guess wrong, those battleships that shelled the Sabaody archipelago were Don Chinjo's subordinates, or pirates attached to them. Leave it to me, just freeze all of them. At this moment, Kazan's slightly tired voice came, and his tone was full of exhaustion. Dustless's face was full of doubts. Kazan's strength was almost the same as an admiral, but his tired appearance, and even the corners of his clothes had many holes, it was obvious that he had encountered a top powerhouse. Your state. What the hell is going on? Hell King really should be restrained by Sakazuki. Staring at the slightly embarrassed Kazan, Dustless was puzzled. On this island, only Hell King really is a top powerhouse. In the future, when he was old, he could fight Kizaru, and now he is still young, naturally, he can fight Admiral. Kazan's expression was stiff, and there was a flash of embarrassment. He scratched his head and said, "Suddenly a guy with a red nose attacked me. That guy's ability is very strange, his body can split into 4 or 5 parts." Thinking of that strange ability, Kazan was quite surprised. Red nose. Split into 4 or 5 parts. This time it was Dustless's face that was strange, a red nose that split into 4 or 5 parts. This is obviously the great god Bucky. Then on second thought, Dustless was relieved. Anyway, he was also a crew member of One Piece and had been through hundreds of battles. It was normal for him to hide his strength and scheme. The crew members who used to follow the Pirate King were all first-class experts. The last time he rode on Bucky's battleship, Dustless vaguely felt that there was something wrong with the old guy. Chapter 627. Although he doesn't understand what Buggy's purpose is, judging from the treachery of the world government, the Gorosei will never arrange a weak clown as Shichibukai for no reason. There must be some unknown secret in it. After hearing Kazan's words, Dustless suddenly realized that the situation around Buggy the Clown was indeed somewhat illogical. Watertight is not an unintentional mistake. Sometimes it is because it is too perfect that mistakes are made. Dustless saw this epitome in Buggy the Clown now. Perfection is also a failure. Boom! Harsh explosions rang out, and the sea around the Sabaody archipelago was bombarded by a large number of pirate ships, and the civilians of the Sabaody archipelago fled like rats crossing the street. Hey, it's really troublesome. I thought it would be a pleasant task. These pirates are really tricky. Looking far away, Akiji saw that the distant sea was full of battleships, and he quickly swept over. He only needed to use his Ice Age on the sea to freeze the surrounding sea, and these pirates would be like turtles in a jar. It's a pity. Dustless looked down at Don Chinjo and said abruptly. Don Chinjo's face was black, and he simply ignored the existence of Dustless and buried his old face in the ground. It seems that the monotonous ground is better than Dustless's face. Seeing this, Dustless just smiled. Your apprentice beat the celestial dragons and robbed the devil fruit auctioned by Charles Ross. If he was caught, I don't need to say it. You know what the end would be. It's lucky to be executed directly. Dustless said. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Green Pepper's old face changed subtly. Of course, it's the luckiest thing to be executed directly. With the cruelty of the celestial dragons, it's normal to cut him into pieces and then throw him into the sea to feed the sea kings. Dustless continued to add fuel to the fire. Celestial dragons are arrogant and look down on everyone. In their eyes, humans are just inferior creatures. To put it bluntly, humans all over the world are their entertainment. Although it sounds a bit exaggerated, the world of celestial dragons is like this. What are you trying to say? Green Pepper asked in an unfriendly manner. Every time Dustless talked about the habits of the celestial dragons, Cone Green Pepper's heart became more and more depressed. Once his disciple was captured alive, he would inevitably be dismembered by the furious celestial dragons. In fact, what I want to say is very simple: obey me, and I have something for you to do. If not, I will give your apprentice to the celestial dragons, and you can imagine the end. If you are willing to obey me, in the future, I will let you go safe and sound, and so will your apprentices. Dustless smiled evilly, full of coercion. When Don Chinjo was in his heyday, He was a big pirate with a bounty of more than 500 million berries. His strength was self-evident. Garp needed to personally deal with him. He fought with Admiral with ease. Dustless's current subordinates, except for Hawkeye who can suppress him, it is estimated that no one is his opponent. Although Doflamingo was strong, it was still some distance away from its peak. "Are you threatening me?" Don Chinjo asked angrily. Golden waves swept out, and the suffocating Haoshiku Haki was oppressive and suffocating. "I am indeed threatening you." Dustless smiled happily and frankly admitted it. Between life and death, choosing the wrong choice would mean stepping into hell. Choosing the right choice would allow one to ascend to the heavens. It all depended on how one chose. "My apprentice hit the celestial dragons. Even if you are a marine admiral, you can't pardon them." Don Chinjo did not refuse, but chose to retort. The identity of a marine admiral is scary enough, but he is still a lackey for the celestial dragons. Even some pirates in the New World ridiculed the marine admiral as the most loyal lackey of the celestial dragons. Where the celestial dragons are on fire, the marine admiral is responsible for extinguishing the fire there, is it? "What if I am also a celestial dragon?" Dustless asked jokingly. To some extent, the law of the world is built according to the will of the celestial dragons to satisfy their selfish desires and have great power. Even if a few pirates are released, it doesn't matter. "Nonsense, do you think this old man is a 3-year-old child? The whole world knows that the celestial dragons are incompetent straw bags." His eyes widened, and the words that came to his mouth stopped abruptly. Don Chinjo looked at the corner of Dustless's torn clothes in horror. "You are really a celestial dragon? Are you kidding me? Aren't they all incompetent straw bags?" His rolling eyes suddenly lost their focus and was replaced by shock, and then he took a deep breath. Don Chinjo looked at Dustless's exposed coat. The uniform that only a celestial dragon dares to wear is not fake. Pretending to be a celestial dragon. The entire world government has been around for more than 800 years, and no one has been so bold. How about? Agree to my conditions and go to heaven, refuse me. It's not impossible, but you have to be prepared in advance that your apprentice will be torn to pieces. Dustless said with a smile. Don Chinjo's old face turned green when he heard this. He was completely in a passive state and could only follow Dustless's nose. If he refuses, the apprentice who attacked the celestial dragons will be finished at any time. Agree? This is naturally even more impossible. He was beaten by Dustless, and now he has to beg for mercy in front of him. Don Chinjo's arrogant self-esteem can't stand it, and he can't accept it. For a time, he was in a dilemma. It was like a person suddenly beating you up and then using despicable means to make you be his obedient son. Moreover, it was the kind that you had to be. Aggrieved, uncomfortable, unwilling, hatred. All kinds of expressions solidified on Don Chinjo's face. For a moment, he almost vomited blood. He has never felt so resentful in his life. As an admiral of the Marine, how can you be so despicable? Don Chinjo asked angrily. In his heart, he was so angry that he cursed. This kind of person should be killed by a heavenly punishment. The Marine who boasted of absolute justice unexpectedly produced such a shameless and dirty villain like Dustless. God is simply blind. Chapter 628. Green Pepper's heart wavered, and he was in a dilemma. He could not swallow the humiliation of being Wu Chen's lackey. He had been slapped in the face, yet he still had to bow down like a grandson. He could not swallow this humiliation. Zhuai Ji Green Pepper was also a world-famous great thief. How could he be willing to accept this? However, if he didn't obey Dustless, only death awaited him. The cruelty and coldness of the celestial dragons was well known to the world. Things that they fancied would be snatched by coercive means. Now that Charles fancied his apprentice, there was no other way except to be torn to pieces by the exposed celestial dragons. Are you still hesitating? My time waits for no one. Wasting other people's time for no reason is tantamount to murder for money. Seeing Green Pepper's face twitching, Dustless said softly, if you refuse my conditions, I don't mind calling that fat pig Chalmers here right now, and I'll cut you into pieces in front of your face. Dustless smiled devilishly. The cold smile hanging on the corner of his mouth was particularly horrifying, making one's scalp tingle. You devil. Green Pepper said in a trembling voice. Wu Chen's cruel and callous appearance was obviously not a joke. Only the word demon could replace him. If one offended someone like Wu Chen, they would be in a situation where they could neither live nor die. Speed decides, I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. After spending half a day, Dustless also lost his patience. Green Pepper heard this and quickly exchanged glances. After thinking hard, he finally nodded heavily. As the saying goes, a bad life is better than a good death. In addition, he also didn't want his disciple, who had followed him for a lifetime, to be brutally dismembered by the celestial dragons and fed to the sea kings. You know your place. Dustless said leisurely as he withdrew his foot from Green Pepper's back. Green Pepper's strength couldn't be underestimated. He was at the level of a general. Such a powerful person was the subordinate that Dustless needed at the moment. It was perfect to use him to carry out some secret missions. It wasn't easy for this old man to recover my head, but it's been beaten back to its original form again. Green Pepper said in distress as he rubbed his head. This was the most tragic thing in life. After being beaten up, he could only swallow his anger. What was even more tragic was that he had become the other party's underling. He suddenly felt that all the bad luck in the world had fallen on his head. Allah Allah Allah. It's a group of vicious murderers. If I don't take care of you, the marshal won't let me off easily. On the shore of the Sabaody archipelago, Kazan frowned. Pirates were hateful, and this group of people who slaughtered weak civilians were even more hateful in Kazan's eyes. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong was also the type of people he hated the most. With a leap, 2 icicles extended from his arms and smashed into the sea. Iseon. As Kazan's voice fell, the entire surface of the sea suddenly froze into ice. The ice quickly spread in all directions and froze the entire sea in an instant. The boundless area was stupefying, and the rumbling of the cannon stopped abruptly. This old man has seen that little devil before. Dustless and Don Chinjo were secretly watching the movements on the sea. Don Chinjo recognized Kazan at a glance. When he fought with Garp, he was there. His superb freezing ability was world-famous. I've never seen a pirate flag. Where did this clown come from? Eyebrows slightly raised, Dustless puzzled. At first, he thought that this was Don Chinjo's subordinates, but now it seems that he thought too much. A pirate flag that he had never seen before was obviously a passerby type. There are many people in the Sabaody archipelago. This old man only brought a few apprentices. Before, I said that I would bombard the Sabaody archipelago, but this old man was just fooling the Marines. Don Chinjo said proudly. The apprentices who came with him had been secretly arranged to leave. Don Chinjo was wearing large black handcuffs. Before, he had beaten Dustless to the point where he couldn't fight back. Naturally, he couldn't just let him go. He needed the right opportunity. The mission has been completed. Only this group of minions is left. His eyes swept straight into the distance. The frozen ships in front of them could no longer move. They were like turtles in a jar. They could be annihilated anytime and anywhere. The distance is quite far. Let me send you on your way. This lonely and boring mission should be over. Wu Chen's eyes turned, emitting a clear and cold light. Suddenly, several green spheres floated behind him. It was very mysterious. At the same time, Dustless's body also changed and was swallowed by an emerald light. If you can die under this move, you can rest in peace in the underworld. When his voice fell, several green beads behind him floated in front of Dustless and then strangely liquefied, turning into a bright golden light condensed in Dustless's right hand. Don Chinjo's pupils suddenly shrank. Although the light in Dustless's hand was very small, it gave him an unprecedented sharpness. It seemed that the whole world could be split. Stop here. His arms suddenly raised high and pointed to a large number of frozen pirate ships in the distance. Immediately, without hesitation, the light in his hand extended countless times in an instant. Golden Will Reincarnation Explosion. An earth-shattering beam of light swept out. The endless light ignored distance. In front of it, even the ends of the earth would be useless. They would still be within the attack range. Boom boom boom, the light beam slashed down and the dense pirate group in the distance was suddenly annihilated. The whole sea was horribly split open with a gap of tens of kilometers. It was boundless. Gulp. Don Chinjo was stunned and swallowed his saliva. His eyes flashed with fear and dissatisfaction. He felt a chill down his spine. He knew that this was Dustless's demonstration in disguise. If he wanted to be lucky, even if he was at the end of the earth, he would be killed by this unprecedented move. Ah! Really, I tried my best to hold back, but he still created such a large-scale attack. It really is a difficult technique to control. Dustless was quite depressed. Chapter 629. Trying to hold back, not going all out. Green Pepper's old face turned green. Dense black lines hung on his forehead. He cursed in his heart as the corners of his mouth twitched. He clenched his teeth tightly to prevent himself from being killed by Dustless if he roared out loud. This guy is too annoying. Not only did he destroy all the pirates in one move, but he also said that he was trying to hold back, not going all out. Especially Dustless's reluctant look made Don Chinjo uncomfortable, and he couldn't help but feel injustice for the group of people who were killed by Dustless. Killing all the pirates of others, but in the end, he looked like he was wronged and couldn't exert his full strength. It's really despicable. Don Chinjo shook his head. Maybe after his subordinates and himself were killed, Dustless would have the same expression. In that case, it would be too unfair to die. Looking straight ahead, the sea that was frozen by Aokiji before had a giant crack of tens of kilometers in length. The whole sea was strangely separated and couldn't heal. This incredible scene was scary. Worthy of being the youngest admiral. Kazan ran over and flattered with a smile on his face. It seemed that only the smile on his face could hide the shock deep in his face. This shocking attack was beyond the imagination of the world. Even if the Pirate King came back from the dead, he may not be able to do such a terrible thing. Kazan felt a chill run down his spine when he thought of the several dozen kilometer-long crack in the sea. He looked at the scattered sea surface with fear and trepidation. If it hit a person, that guy Sakazuki doesn't seem to be done yet. But that's right, the opponent is Rayleigh, he should be suppressed miserably. Kazan chuckled, and there was a hint of schadenfreude. Water and fire are two elements that are difficult to coexist, and Kazan and Sakazuki are quite incompatible now. The ideas of the two were completely opposite. In order to maintain the rule of the government, Sakazuki could sacrifice anyone. Compared to the benevolent and lazy Kazan, it was a world of difference. It was also destined that the two would have sparks in some areas. I don't think he's much better. Nether King is still young and full of energy. Sakazuki might not be his match. Dustless analyzed, his eyes sparkling. When the king of the underworld, Rayleigh, fought against the young Sakasuji, Wuchen did not think that the latter's chances of winning were high. Sakasuji might be able to defeat Rayleigh during the War of the Underworld, but he was still too young. As the vice-captain of One Piece, Rayleigh's strength is beyond doubt. He definitely has the strength of an admiral. On the other hand, Sakazuki is still a vice-admiral. Although he has the strength of an admiral, he still has a long way to go to defeat Rayleigh. As for Don Chinjo, he was already escorted to the battleship by the Marines. The route was naturally to impel down. A big pirate like Don Chinjo was either executed or escorted to impel down. However, Dustless had already secretly prepared something for him to escape. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, another 4 hours passed quietly. The sun had already set, and the fiery red clouds of dawn covered the world. The seawater was exceptionally beautiful. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen me injured?" In the temporary tent, Sakasuji roared in a hoarse voice. He always felt that these marine soldiers were looking at him strangely. His temper was already quite irritable, so he suddenly roared. Dustless looked at Sakasuji playfully. If he could, he would have taken a picture of him right now. His crimson suit was full of holes, and there were clear bloodstains on his arms. There were some bloodstains at the corner of his mouth. The flamboyant corsage he wore was also half burnt. No wonder Sakasuji was so pissed. That damn old man is as strong as a sea king. Sakasuji showed a rare look of shock. Rayleigh's powerful physical strength was beyond his imagination. In terms of physical strength, only the Marines' hero, Garp, could beat Rayleigh. Dustless nodded undeniably and then said, "Don't worry about Rayleigh. That guy has retired from the world. If we don't take the initiative to provoke him, he shouldn't take the initiative to trouble us." Kazan and Sakasuji also nodded. The reason why they met Rayleigh this time was because Sakasuji was on a whim. As a result, they were suppressed by the young and energetic Rayleigh. The current 3 admirals are still weak, and there is a gap between them and the future. Otherwise, they would be equal to Rayleigh. The task given by Sengoku has been completed. You go back to the Marine headquarters. I should go back to Mariewa. Hearing this, Sakasuji and Kazan both showed envious eyes. As a celestial dragon, Dustless moved freely and unrestrained. He was much more leisurely than their busy officers. They couldn't find the right time to be lazy. After about an hour or so, the entire Sabaody archipelago finally returned to quiet, and the big and small pirates were cleaned up. During this period, Charo's sister, the female celestial dragon Shalolia, came to ask for Don Chinjo and others. As a result, she was collared by Dustless in a strange way. In the end, she ran away crying in fear. She didn't even have time to take off the collar on her neck. Wu Chen's reputation was in disarray. He could really do such a crazy thing to find a female celestial dragon as a slave. Dustless was helpless. At night, a biting cold wind blew from the sea, and the marine battleship escorting Don Chinjo quickly sneaked away. "Are you finally here? I'm dying of anxiety. Impel Down is not a place for people to stay." On the mast, Don Chinjo, who was shackled with iron chains, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at White Zetsu, who suddenly appeared in front of him. He was really afraid that Dustless would play with him and take him to Impel Down. In that kind of dark place, it is extremely difficult to breathe. Dustless-sama will not forget what he promised you. Glancing at Don Chinjo, White Zetsu opened the iron shackles that bound Don Chinjo. Chapter 630. Don Chinjo nodded ecstatically and then jumped into the sea without hesitation. White Zetsu's clone had been waiting for a long time to pick him up on a boat. It has to be said that the quality of the marine soldiers trained by Sengoku was good. Hearing the sound of falling into the water, a large group of Marines quickly ran out of the cabin and looked at Don Chinjo, who had disappeared. Many smart Marines knew that Don Chinjo did not escape. They used lights to illuminate the entire sea. Don Chinjo disappeared in an instant and they picked up guns to attack him. However, the effect was negligible. Things like guns and cannons are just an insignificant itch for pirates who have more than 500 million berries. Wanting to hurt Don Chinjo is a fantasy, tantamount to a fool's dream. The number one criminal of the Marine ran away. This crime must be carried by someone. Sengoku naturally can't blame Dustless. This matter has nothing to do with him, not to mention he is a celestial dragon, so he can only say, "What are you two doing?" The next morning, in the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku's angry roar resounded. At this moment, Kazan and Sakazuki were being mercilessly scolded by Sengoku. It must be their turn to carry the blame. A living Don Chinjo ran away. Because of you two, the Marine will be labeled as incompetent, Sengoku said while staring at Sakazuki and Kazan. If Don Chinjo was an ordinary criminal, it wouldn't be a big deal. With such an unprecedented strength, there is no doubt about the destruction he made. What made Sengoku gloomy the most is that he spent a lot of money to ask Wuchin to come out, but in the end, Don Chinjo ran away. The Marine Headquarters didn't even get a chicken feather in the end, and because of Don Chinjo's escape, they will be labeled as incompetent and useless. Just thinking about it made Sengoku's stomach ache. It's ridiculous. How did that guy do it? I remember to lock him in handcuffs and shackles, and because I was worried, I tied his whole body with a special iron chain. Kazan was puzzled. Sakazuki frowned and nodded. Obviously, he also had deep doubts about this accident. The cooked duck flew away. It was more uncomfortable than eating 10 pounds of flies. Did I deliberately let him go? Sengoku rolled his eyes and asked with an angry smile. Waving his hand, Sengoku was too lazy to waste his breath. Don Chinjo has run away, and it's useless to reprimand Kazan and Sakazuki. After a while, I can authorize the three to be admiral. Sengoku secretly decided. If it wasn't for the unexpected incident in the Sabaody archipelago, Borsellino and the others might have already been marine admirals. Now that Don Chinjo suddenly appeared and disappeared, Sakazuki and Kazan's perfect achievements left a stain. Rashly being promoted to admiral will definitely be a problem. Naturally, Sakazuki and Kazan. Okay, you can go back. Sengoku tiredly ordered them to leave. For a moment, he gave people the feeling that he was older by more than 10 years, and they could vaguely see the white hair on his temples. Suddenly, they felt that taking over the position of Marine Fleet Admiral was the biggest mistake in their life. Sakazuki and Kazan did not waste any more words and turned to leave. Angering the fuming marshal was akin to setting fire to himself. Seeing Sakazuki and Kazan leave, Sengoku's face suddenly began to turn gloomy again. In fact, he also believed in the two. Sakazuki and Kazan, as well as Borsellino, were his confidants. Damn bastard, don't let me know who did it in the end, if not. With a snort, Sengoku's killing intent soared into the sky. Mariewa. Compared with the depressed Sengoku, Dustless was much more relaxed, basking in the sun leisurely and in a good mood. The plans at hand were carried out perfectly according to his plan. The first was Doflamingo, who became the king of Dressrosa. Although the kid's means were extremely bloody, the effect was good. He easily controlled the wind direction of the whole Dressrosa, completely led public opinion in his direction, and poured all the dirty water on the former King Luke. During this period, several pirates rashly invaded Dressrosa and were annihilated by Doflamingo's overwhelming strength, which encouraged the civilians who had been tortured by pirates for a long time, and Doflamingo's prestige also improved a lot. Those fools are really easy to deceive. Doflamingo just found a few actors and fooled them. After listening to White Setsu's report, Dushless, who was leisurely basking in the sun, was speechless. The so-called invading pirates were actually actors hired by Doflamingo. However, such a simple trick worked amazingly and successfully eliminated the inner resistance of the residents of Dressrosa. How is the production of the artificial devil fruit going? Dustless asked. All the information about the bloodline factor has been sent to Caesar. The artificial devil fruit is progressing rapidly, and he heard that the finished product has recently come out. White Setsu was suddenly in a dilemma. His eyebrows squeezed together, but he still gritted his teeth and said, "The finished product has come out, but there are still side effects for the time being. People who eat it will die in a few days." It's no wonder that White Setsu is in a dilemma. This is far from Dustless's plan for mass production. But even so, the artificial devil fruit has been secretly sold by the black-hearted Doflamingo. Whether they live or die is not something he can control. Die in a few days after eating it. It has such an effect. Hearing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly. In his previous life, he didn't hear that the artificial devil fruit had such side effects. If he didn't know that Caesar was timid and sincerely attached to him, he would really think that this was a trick played by Caesar. Dustless nodded slightly. He also knew that he was too hasty. Scientific experiments can't be sloppy. The smallest mistake can lead to the collapse of the whole process. Enough time is needed to make up for it. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.